I want to now say a little bit more about what self-compassion is. And normally when I define self-compassion, I can't just say it in one sentence, because for me, it's a journey that has 3 different levels to it. So I'm going to describe just the first level tonight, okay? Which is that self-compassion is the opposite of self-hate. It's a resolve to be as kind to ourselves as we would a good friend. So imagine a good friend who's really distressed and he comes to you for support. What would you do? Would you judge your friend? Would you make her feel bad about herself? Or would you be kind and understanding? Would you reassure and comfort your friend? Now, in the title of this first dimension of self-compassion, I use this phrase self-hate, and that's quite a strong word. Does that really apply to us? Well, actually, it's kind of on a continuum, isn't it? I mean, there are some people who feel they do hate themselves. They feel that they're somehow broken or damaged. And others of us are just tormented ceaselessly by this inner critical voice saying, I'm stupid. I'll never amount to anything. I'm always messing up. But many of us also have just a subtle sense that we're somehow not good enough. We don't deserve love. So what we don't realize that judging ourselves, or others of course, is being unkind. It's a little like throwing a spear. Ask yourself, how many spears do I throw at myself within an hour, within a day, or my whole lifetime? The opposite, which is not judging, is kindness. Let that sink in for a minute. Not judging is kindness. Now, how can we possibly have genuine compassion for and clear communication with another person when we're always judging and harming ourselves? We end up becoming as critical and hard towards others as we are to ourselves. So self-compassion is learning to extend kindness and understanding to ourselves. So here I want to introduce a model for self-compassion taught by Professor Kristen Neff. And I call it an emergency on-the-spot method of self-compassion. And this method has 3 aspects. And each of these aspects has a phrase that goes with it. So first, I'll just list the 3. The first is mindfulness. The second is common humanity. And the third is self-kindness. So what is mindfulness? Well, first of all, the phrase that goes with this aspect is, this is a moment of struggle. So mindfulness means that we're being present and receptive to everything in our experience, free of any judgment. Mindfulness is an open and receptive attitude, even to difficult feelings. Now, why is mindfulness necessary for self-compassion? Because if we're ignoring our pain, it's not possible to feel compassion for ourselves. So with mindfulness, when things are hard, we pause and notice, this is a moment of struggle. So the second is common humanity. And the phrase that goes with it is, struggle is part of life. So common humanity is recognizing that human life has both positive and negative aspects, shadow and light, happiness and suffering. The truth for everyone is that life doesn't always go the way we want. Great losses or suffering are part of the shared human experience. So having difficulties is not a sign that there's something wrong with you. And no one has a life that's free of mistakes. It's impossible to be perfect. So instead of beating ourselves up and taking our failures personally, remind yourself, nobody is perfect. So if you found you made a mistake, you're on the right planet and you have a lot of company. And reflect too that if we never made a mistake, we would never learn and we wouldn't become more compassionate. So it's important to realize that a mistake is not the last word on who we are. This means when we find we're struggling, we remember suffering is part of life. Now, the third aspect of her model is self-kindness. And the phrase that goes with it is, because it's hard, may I be kind to myself and give myself the compassion that I need. So, with self-kindness, we accept and reassure ourselves, responding to our anguish the same way we would to a good friend, with warmth and understanding. Kristen Neff says, we can use touch to comfort ourselves, touching our face or putting our hands over our heart, saying, oh, this is hard. I'm here for you. Touch is a very powerful signal of compassion, particularly when we feel overwhelmed. And research has demonstrated that our brain and nervous system react the same way to our caring hands as if it were a friend gently touching us. Just now we're all tangled up. There's a part of us that's confused and suffering, and the part that's clear and loving. And when we're all tangled up, it's not possible to feel compassion for ourselves. But by accompanying ourselves, we disentangle. So instead of identifying and getting swamped in a negative feeling, believing that's who we really are, we become like a loving presence who can show kindness to the part of us who's struggling. So, when we're in great distress, we remind ourselves, because it's hard, may I be kind and give myself the compassion that I need. Now, Kristen Neff tells the story about her son who was autistic, and when he was very small, he had behavioral disorders. And one time, she said, they were on a long-haul flight, and he started having a complete meltdown. And she wrote, when he started having a tantrum, it was such a hard time. I mean, imagine the noise, the chaos, the little boy out of control, passengers waking up being disturbed. Maybe they're judging the little boy and the mom. I don't know, maybe I was on that flight too. But Neff said, as I got more and more tense, then he would ramp up. She said, then I remembered these three phrases. This is a moment of struggle. Struggle is a part of life. And because it's hard, may I be kind to myself and show myself the compassion that I need. She said, then I put my hands on my heart and flooded myself with compassion. After some moments, she said, she noticed that her son was calming down at the same time. So, being kind to ourselves is, in my model, the first dimension of self-compassion. And I'm just going to name the other two dimensions, but I'm going to go into more detail in them in the weekend. So the second dimension of self-compassion is that it's hearing and responding to our own cry in the darkness. And the third is that self-compassion is a heroic journey to heal our wounded heart so that we can live from the joy of our true nature. So more on those two to come in the coming days.